It's a program of Jewish information, inspiration, motivation, and transformation here on the Gavriel Sanders Show.
From the center of the world, the city of Yerushalayim, I am Gavriel, your host for the next 28 minutes on this audio magazine coming to you on the Talkline Network. Last week we had a compelling focus on what we are, that ephemeral aspect of us called the soul. And we're going to go deeper on that today because if I don't know what I am, I'm not going to know who I am, right? And I'll have a few comments of my own to sprinkle into the mix today. But first, let's harvest some thoughts on the coming week's Torah portion with Rabbi Binyamin Goodman. Rabbi Goodman.
Hello out there, listeners across the planet. This is Binyamin Goodman. Looks like I have another week to replace my father, who is Baruch Hashem doing well. Parshat Shoftim, Perek Tez Zayin Pasuk Chaf, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue, Laman Tichya, so that you may live. And once again, I'm going to quote from my father's Sefer, Great Torah Lights from Great Torah Minds, which I encourage everyone to try to get their hands on. What does it say, Tzedek, Tzedek, twice? Many people ask this question, what's this double lashon of Tzedek? So there are a few answers brought down in the Sefer. We could start with the pursuit of justice has to go about in a just way. We are not Machiavellian. The ends do not justify the means. You have to do the right thing in the right way. Answer number one. Answer number two, you should do justice for the sake of justice. No ulterior motives of what you're trying to do. Just do tzedek for the sake of tzedek. Answer number three, the same way one mitzvah leads to another, mitzvah gereris mitzvah, the practice of doing tzedek will be rewarded by other opportunities to do tzedek. There's also a Mishnah at the end of Peah that talks about this lashon of tzedek, tzedek, and even your tzedakah should have to be given the right way, and you should look up that Mishnah at the end of Peah and the Mefarshim. There's one last mahalach brought down by Rabbi Yitzchok Meir HaKohen Schwartz and Rabbi Yitzchok. He says a concept between the words of tzedek, tzedek, and continuing the pasuk leman tichya. There's a medrash that says whenever there's din, there's no din. Medrash in Devarim Rabbah, Perek Hey, Pasuk Daled. It means that the human Bezdin, when it issues a ruling, when it has a din, it's confirmed in Shemayim and there's no questioning on the din, right? When there's a din, there's no din in Shemayim. Now, we've talked about many times in the Chumash and elsewhere in Gemara that Loi ba Shemayimi, that when we have a din down here in Bezdin, it does not get overruled in Shemayim. There's a famous Gemara in Bava Metzia, Daf Nun Tesem Beis, where Rabbi Eliezer was arguing with Rabbi Yeshua, and he brought proofs that he was right. He said, let the tree unroot itself, right? Let the water run backwards. Let the walls of the Beis Medrash fall down. If I'm wrong, it should stay. If I'm right, it should start collapsing. And sure enough, the walls started collapsing, and Rabbi Yeshua said, stop collapsing. So they didn't collapse, but the walls stayed crooked. The water ran backwards. It was just all proofs, min hashamayim, that Rabbi Eliezer was right. And in fact, even a Baskol came out and said halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. However, what we said was, no, ein mashgichim bebaskol and lo bashamayim hi. Once we paskin down here and we hold achrei rabim lahatos, we go after the majority, it doesn't really make a difference what theoretically what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is thinking, right, whatever this means, because we are in charge of the din down here. Now, we also know that the Bezdin in general doesn't kill people. Right, you have the Gemara in Makis Daf Zayin Amud Aleph that a bezdin killed once every 7 years or every 70 years is considered a murderous bezdin. Rabbi Kiva said if I was there, no one would have ever died in a bezdin. I would have. Now, this doesn't mean it was a joke. You did have a court case, and they just looked for ways not to kill the person who might get killed with different reasons. Drisha b'chakira. Again, go ahead and look at the Gemara in Makis Daf Zayin. However, what would happen if courts just said, forget it? Yeah, let's just free for all, right? No court system, maybe no police, no anything. Let people do what they want. In that case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to have to get involved in the court cases. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets involved, there's no excuses, there's no Drisha v'chakira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the truth, and therefore, someone who, in fact, who had there been a din in Bezdin would not have been killed, but because now Bezdin's not doing anything and Shemayim gets involved, the guy will get killed. Therefore, Tzedek, Tirdof, make sure you set up your court system and do it the right way, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the court system to be set up. Leman tichye, so that people should live. Because Bezdin might come up with other punishments, or no punishment at all, as the case may be, while in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be doing this din, the person would get killed. So Tzedek, Tirdof, Leman tichye. Have a good Shabbos.
You're listening to the Gavriel Sanders Show. Here on the Talkline Network. Talkline Network.
So I want to talk to Jewish college students for a minute, or their parents. You've seen what's happening on campus, anti-Semitism, misinformation, and people who think they know something about Israel because they saw a meme. Well, here's the move. Go live it. Spend a semester in Israel, not just talking about it, but actually living in Israel. Experience the vibe of Jerusalem's old city. Share the empowerment of being part of a Jewish majority, maybe for the first time. As the MASA organization says, 4 to 5 months in Israel will forever enrich your Jewish life and identity. And here's the bonus. From Israel, weekend trips to Prague, Paris, London, Dubai, even Greece are faster and cheaper than traveling from the U.S. Plus, your academic calendar runs on the Jewish calendar. No classes, no tests, no conflicts on Jewish holidays. You'll come home not just inspired, but equipped, ready to answer ignorance with insight, because you've lived the story. It's your Jewish future, so learn it, live it, and lead it from Israel. I'd like you to visit jewishyearabroad.org and turn experience into conviction. That's jewishyearabroad.org.
This is David Eskenazi from the Aliyah Network. If you're thinking Aliyah, I invite you to join our dynamic and supportive WhatsApp group. Contact Gavriel for details. Send an email to gavrielradio@gmail.com.
For many months, you've heard me talk about a program called Resilience on Campus. It's an initiative of Israel's BMensch Foundation, for whom I serve as spokesperson, actually. And you may remember the big ROC rollout event that we held at the Israel Embassy in Washington last June. Well, now ROC is moving from rollout to reality. Something pretty exciting is happening this fall at the University of Maryland, where ROC will launch its first campus course led by Rabbi Avi Landa. The goal is to equip Jewish students with the resilience, confidence, and leadership skills to stay grounded in who they are, standing strong under pressure, and respond constructively to the challenges they face on campus. And Maryland is just the beginning. I'd like you to see what we're building, so if you just visit roccampus.com, that's roccampus.com, and you can check it out, monitor the progress. Resilience on Campus, building stronger leaders to preserve the Jewish future.
This is Ezra Hachami, Gavriel's AI agent, inviting you to send an email with a suggested topic or guest to gavrielradio@gmail.com. That's gavrielradio@gmail.com.
Let me share with you some Torah thoughts that come from the Salant Foundation based on the propagation of Mussar, which is really the wisdom of personal growth. The Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah 1 tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu had 10 names: Yered, Chaver, Yekutiel, Avigdor, Avisucho, Avizanoach, and others. All of these names alluded to a special attribute of Moshe. For example, the name Yered means to bring down. That is, Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Torah down from heaven to earth. Yet of all these names, Hashem called him by the name Moshe. Vayikra Hashem el Moshe, and Hashem called to Moshe, as you read in the opening passage of Vayikra 1:1. In the Egyptian language, Moshe means what? To be taken from the water. This is the name that Paro's daughter Batya called him when she rescued him from the Nile River. The question is, why did Hashem choose the name that the Egyptian princess gave him? Why was this name more significant than the names that alluded to Sinai or the other miracles that were performed by Moshe? When Batya's heart was filled with compassion for the Jewish baby, she rescued him at the risk of her own life. She saved a Jewish baby that defied Paro's decree to kill every Jewish male that was born. Despite the risk of the death penalty, she stretched forth her arm to draw Moshe out of the water. The feelings of love that a caregiver holds for the baby are transmitted to and absorbed by the baby. Batya's intense love for Moshe was intensified by total devotion, that is, her willingness to sacrifice her life on his behalf. This dedication of Batya for the child had a profound impact on Moshe. It awakened within him powerful feelings of love and sensitivity for his people. Indeed, his total devotion to his people burned within his heart like a consuming fire. While Moshe was still yet a prince in Paro's palace, he felt a deep empathy for his people. Shemot chapter 2 verse 11 says, "And he went out to his people and saw their suffering." Chazal explained to us in Shemot Rabbah 81:27, "He would see their suffering and cry, 'I have such pity on them. I wish my death would somehow free them from their burdens. There is no labor more grueling than working with mud.' And he would give his shoulder and help each one of them to carry his load." The essential quality of a Jewish leader is passionate care and unyielding dedication to help every Jew. In addition, he has the sensitivity to relate to each Jew according to his individual nature and needs. There is no attribute more precious to Hashem than to devote oneself to loving and helping Klal Yisrael with heart and soul. So may the example of Moshe Rabbeinu awaken within us the love of every Jew, and may we merit to serve each one faithfully and appropriately. How do you implement this? Well, you can start by empathizing with and giving of yourself to help a fellow Jew. This is taken from the Sichos Mussar of Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, Section B, Article 24.
From the heart of the world, coming to you from Yerushalayim, you're tuned to the Gavriel Sanders Show. Oh yeah, Gavriel Sanders Show.
You might recognize that we present this program often in the format of an audio magazine, featuring a variety of content from various contributors and influencers. And Baruch Hashem, we have many to tap. One of our more recent content providers is Rabbi Pinchas Taylor of the American Faith Coalition. He's doing significant work beyond the Jewish world to bring Torah-based spirituality to the common culture, something they're thirsting for, by the way, as so many are either leaving the church world or simply have no definable spiritual path. And today, like last week, we're looking for insights on the human soul. Rabbi Taylor will discuss it from his perspective, and we'll follow that with Rabbi Yitzchok Adlerstein, who will take us deeper on this soul subject that he started with us here last week. So here's Rabbi Taylor, followed by Rabbi Adlerstein on the Gavriel Sanders Show.
One of the things that I think about is the verse in Job chapter 10 that says, "You've clothed me with skin and with flesh." In other words, you've clothed me with skin and with flesh. That the me is below the skin and the flesh. The skin and the flesh is the clothing. The me, the I, is below them, is the soul, is something deeper, the person, the mind living within the person. And there's different layers of consciousness, different layers of soul, but that the body is simply a garment. One of the thought experiments that I think about as well is if you imagine yourself in your mind's eye, looking at yourself in the mirror, but rather than your current self looking back at you, you think about your 15-year-old self. Well, you look very different now than you did when you were 15. Maybe when you were 15, you had braces and you had pimples, different hairstyle. And if you backtrack that another 5 years to your 10-year-old self, your 10-year-old self and your 15-year-old self both look different than your current self. Yeah, your 10-year-old self might have had glasses and crooked teeth. Your 15-year-old self had pimples and braces. And if you go back to your 5-year-old self, you have even a different little boy or little girl. And if you fast forward 20 years, you're also looking different. So which stage along the way is the real us? We're constantly physically changing. Which one is the real me? If you take that a step further and you understand that a lot of the cells in our body have died and replenished themselves. Every few years, many of the cells die and replenish themselves. So a lot of the cells that are in your body right now are different than the cells that were when you were 15 or when you were 5 years old, and will be different in 20 years' time from now as well. Which one is the real me? And then if you go a step deeper, besides for the physical aspects of the person, and you think about the emotions, the things that made you happy, sad, scared, excited, now and when you were 15 are very different things. And likewise, your emotions, your things that made you happy, sad, scared, excited when you were 5 are also different than they were when you were 15, and also different now, and may also be different 20 years from now as well. The question is, which one is the real me? So physically, we're constantly changing. Emotionally, we're constantly changing. Intellectually as well, we think about things differently now than we did when we were 15. Different when we were 5. At 5, we thought about it one way, at 15 another, right now another thing, and 20 years from now, I might think about things in a different way. Which one is the real me? In fact, if physically we're changing constantly, and emotionally we're changing constantly, and intellectually we're changing constantly, which one is the real me? How do I even know when I'm looking in the mirror that it's me looking back at me? And so the answer from a Jewish perspective or from a biblical perspective would be that place of permanence inside, a place that doesn't change, that me that lives inside of me, that is forever, despite all of the external changes, is what we call the soul. It's how I know when I'm looking at me that it's me looking back at me. It's the me that lives inside of me. It's the me that you have clothed me with flesh and skin as a garment. And so when I see videos like this, it just further strengthens and enlightens the things that we've been talking about in the Torah world, in the biblical mindset, for thousands of years at this point.
In our last podcast, we talked about the soul acting as a sort of engine of thought, rationality, personality, memory, and to some, indeed, life itself. Many hundreds of years ago, there used to be intense debate about the nature of the soul, particularly in non-Jewish circles. Was the soul entirely spiritual, or did it have a material component? Some people claimed to be able to weigh it. Others thought they could localize it. They thought it resided in a particularly internal part of the brain, which we now call the pineal gland. With the Enlightenment, rationalists and skeptics turned away from religious terminology and thought they could solve the old problems with new rational thought. They split into two camps about matters like thought and consciousness. One group argued that everything in the universe was matter, was material, and all phenomena, including things that seemed to be sort of ethereal and not bounded by substance and material, were nonetheless related to matter. Others argued that everything was a question of mind. There was nothing but mind. What we called material was just the way our mind formed certain sensations and images. There were skeptics of the skeptics who were sick of both sides and both theories, and they quipped, "No matter, never mind," as a way of showing their contempt for both. With more modern investigation of physiology in general and brain function in particular, the scientific community had less and less reason to call upon the soul as an explanation for life, or even for consciousness in all of its forms. Many people today see life as a bundle of chemical activities that produce certain phenomena when they coincide. When they cease, so does life. Yet, many people, for many reasons, resist the notion that there is nothing more to life than the material, that there is nothing to life more than a cleverly put together or fortuitously put together group of chemical reactions. Many people have trouble understanding how electric activity in the brain results in consciousness. We understand that the brain is important in thought. We can map out where thought occurs or where thought is related to in different parts of the brain and show the results when brain function is lost. And yet, to many people, the notion of consciousness is still an enigma. To many people, we have not in several hundred years, moved far from the words of the great French philosopher Blaise Pascal, who said, "There is nothing so inconceivable as that matter should be conscious of itself." So some people still find it satisfying to speak of the soul as that which enables meaningful thought. Whether this appeals to you or not, the Kabbalistic notion of the soul moves far beyond any of this discussion. We'll start with one incredible phrase from the Zohar, a central text of the Kabbalah of very ancient provenance. The Zohar defines the neshama, defines the soul, as Chelek Eloka milmala, as a portion of God from above. Now stop and think about what that means. It is absolutely breathtaking in what it asserts, in what it makes of man, in what it says about the connection between man and God, in taking the biblical image of man, that man is created in the image of God, taking that phrase, as it were, to the next step. A photograph is an image. It shows some correspondence to the original object. But none of that object is contained within the photo. What the Zohar asserts is that our image of God, the neshama, is different. We are not just patterned after God. We have, as it were, a bit of Him residing within us. Now, if you think this is just a matter of semantics, think again. You don't have to understand it entirely. I don't fool myself into thinking that I understand it entirely or halfway. But if you can satisfy yourself with a little flash of inspiration, you will understand that asserting that there is a part of us that is a part of God represents a solution to an entire bunch of thorny problems about the relationship between man and God. In our last podcast, we spoke of man affecting the entire cosmos, of Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto in the 18th century asserting that it was one of the foundations of our faith that through our actions, that any action that we take has the ability of raising ourselves up and at the same time raising, uplifting, affecting the entire cosmos. It's a beautiful statement, but why should that be? The Zohar's explanation of the soul gives us at least a beginning, a way of starting off on a process of understanding that, even if it's not entirely complete. We understand God as something entirely spiritual. We never made the mistake of confusing God with a big, powerful guy in the sky, with a kind of Superman who's resistant to red kryptonite. God is not like us. God has no physical properties, cannot have physical properties. God is a being that we cannot really wrap our minds around because we are not spiritual. We live in a physical world. Everything around us has boundaries, has dimension, occupies several dimensions. How can we even begin to relate to a being that Jews have always asserted is not like anything of this world, and yet we fiercely believe in him because of our experience with him? Well, according to the Zohar, the soul is a good part of that answer. We can relate to God, even if imperfectly, because some of him resides within us. And not only can we relate to him, but we can affect the spirituality of the universe, the part that we don't see, through the part of us that is spiritual. In other words, The soul acts as a kind of modem, if you will, permitting communication, as modems do, between two devices, man on one end and God on the other. Other religions stress faith and thought and reflection as the most religious of activities. It is through those activities that man is uplifted and man gains primarily. They look often disparagingly upon Judaism's stress of picayune commandments, of little details. Why would people look for spirituality within activities that are completely physical? How does concrete physical activity translate into spiritual gain, as Judaism asserts? The answer, in part, my friends, is that the soul, our interface with and our portal into the spiritual side of the universe, connects us with two worlds simultaneously, allowing us to live in a universe that is physical and act in it on the one hand, while through that interface of the soul having an effect upon a completely different side of the universe that many of us sense is there and may even be the more important of the two. It is through that neshama, through that soul, that we mediate, that soul mediates between the physical activities of this world and the effect that it can have upon the spirituality of the universe, and also allows us to communicate and to sense and to have a relationship with God Himself.
The subtext of our programming here on the Gavriel Sanders Show is to bring you content that makes you mad. No, not that way. MAD stands for making a difference, as Aaron Michelle will mention here shortly. So just find that one thought or action in each program that has your name on it, so to speak, and then go sow a seed of effort to produce a difference that only you can make. You know, the sand in the hourglass of time flows really quickly. We all have a purpose, and I hope today's features help you to refine yours. Our thanks today to executive producer Zeb Brenner of the Talkline Network, to Erin Michelle for her voiceover talent, and to Audionautics for our intro-outro music. Take what you've heard today and go make the difference only you can. Till next week, Kol Tuv.
This program showcases people, organizations, and opportunities for making a difference. Tune in next week for another freshly baked edition of the Gavriel Sanders Show. You can reach Gavriel at gavrielradio@gmail.com. That's GAVRIEL radio@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.